So I would like to know, what is your original sin?
Oh my gosh. My moment of original sin.
Welcome to Original Sin, the unapologetic podcast by Glowreel, where brilliant women say the things the old boys club wishes we wouldn't. I'm your host, Shilpa Bim, and I chat with some of Australia's most influential women to dig into the truths, taboos, and untold stories that redefine power, leadership, and womanhood. Before we get into it, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Tread Softly. Season 1 of Original Sin is brought to you by Tread Softly, who are a naturally lighter in alcohol and certified sustainable wine brand. Tread Softly also has an award-winning non-alcoholic range, which is my personal favourite and my go-to for social events. This year, Tread Softly launched the Next Generation Female Winemaker program to support a rising star in the industry and continue to advocate for all types of social responsibility, which we love to see. Head to treadsoftly.com to learn more and to check out the beautiful range of Tread Softly wines. Yasmin, welcome to Original Sin.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. I love this setup. Very glam.
I love it too. The purple, such a vibe. Goes with the real colour.
Really cute.
So you have had and continue to have the audacity to change the world, which is a good thing. And your incredible advocacy work in particular is backed up just by a suite of awards. So you are a Rhodes Scholar, which is so impressive, but I think even more so because that's not really something that's always associated with young women, and particularly young women of colour, so go you. You've been a recipient of the Martin Luther King Jr. Centre's Youth Influencer of the Year award. You were previously in Vogue Australia's top 21 women that defined 2021. You've been a part of the top 40 under 40 most influential Asian Australians. I could go on, but I'll pause there. And really keen to hear from you a little bit more about you, and in particular, if we were to strip away that very impressive list of accolades, what is something about you that doesn't make it into your speeches or social posts?
Yeah, I think my speaking is, it's just one part of me. I think something that people may not know about me is that I really enjoy pop culture, specifically the pop in culture. So I think actually, interestingly, I feel like with my activism, I sort of it's very emotional, and it sort of it's like ebbs and flows of energy and stuff like that. But one thing I'm always thinking about is actually how pop culture is political. Yep. And I'm really interested in how culture defines how generations think about things, and how what is currently popular actually reflects a lot of economic issues or political issues. And right now I'm particularly interested in Katseye and the rise of globalism, and how that can be sort of shown in a globalization of pop culture rather than Americanization. So anyway, I actually take a lot of joy just making comparisons to what is happening and how culture is often upstream from politics, and what it might actually be a reflection of.
Yeah, that's so true. When you're talking about how pop culture kind of reflects political or economic trends, I immediately had labubus come into my head. Any thoughts on labubus? Probably not what you thought you'd be talking
there's
about.
There's always a something, right? There's Tamagotchi, there's always a little trinket. But I think increasingly with labubus and bag charms, it's what's really popular is small. Labubus can be expensive, but relatively affordable in the sense of a small luxury or fun thing, and how that can actually reflect the economic state of we can't have big purchases, so it's a matcha and labubu because
100%.
It is somewhat accessible within the wage that we're receiving. So that I also think these micro trends or smaller trends is also symbolic of the fact that we sort of have less large disposable income. It's for small fun things.
Yeah, 100%. I do love a little treat. So.
Yeah. Who doesn't, right?
Yeah,
it brings us joy. And it also brings us joy in a very dark time. So I also think it's while this is all going on, we're also grabbing on fun little moments, including, I don't know, a labubu or whatever. So it's not to say it's a bad or good thing. It's just a way to sort of actually maybe articulate or understand what's happening around us.
Yeah, so true. I'm interested like 10, 20 years from now to read the analysis of like some of those current trends, like the labubu, and you're right, matcha lattes, they're a thing.
Yeah. I've even been thinking about Sabrina Carpenter and how it actually reflects the current MAGA thing in America. So actually, and that's not to say her music is that. It's just to say that like white, blonde, 50s, reminiscent, sort of like nuclear family like type image that I think she often plays upon. Like I'm observing that like it's very different to like 2010s where it was ridiculous and over the top and like post-recession fashion. Like now it's sort of like it's like a American idealism of back in the golden times. Like, but also I think it honestly has some connection to like white supremacist ideals of, you know, promoting like the white blonde woman in Trump's America. So this is what I mean. Like I actually find it really interesting. So it's like, I also think like racially, like what is popular right now? What are people's preferences? Like, are they wanting something camp or are they wanting something that's very like status quo? And yeah, I think often when there's like something campy, something out there, it's usually more of a time of excess where people can have like some more wealth, where they want theatrics. I feel like right now we're in a space where, I don't know, I feel like it's pulling back on that theatrics and imagination, particularly in America because of their current political situation.
Yeah, so true. On that note, I read the other day that the theme for Christmas this year is a Ralph Lauren Christmas. So I think that really speaks to the point you just made as well, like that very traditional, all-American vibe. And I always find it fascinating to see how that, you know, it influences global culture.
Totally.
And you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
but I think one thing to watch and to see is how I think increasingly pop culture is going to become international. Yeah. And we're seeing like I was talking about Katseye, I was talking about also in the year of like K-pop Demon Hunters. Like these are very defining parts of like the younger generation. I remember when I was young, you'd never see an Asian person in pop culture. Like literally, I was thinking about it. Like I was looking at the Grammy Awards or MTV VMAs. Like you'd never see an Asian person. You'd see like white people, black people, Latino people. Like you would never see Asian people. So there's like definitely, I think, a shift in even how the younger generations will like understand culture, and particularly like with an, you know, like quite a reference point to like Asian culture and like Asian reference, which I never had growing up.
Yeah, it's everywhere at the moment, and it's so cool to see. I think, imagine if that Gap campaign that Katseye has been was around when we were growing up, right? We'd just be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
And I don't want to say like, oh my gosh, it's like super progressive, because I also know that like there's absolutely still like body standards, like there's a very specific type of diversity, and I also understand that like capitalism plays a role in they are deliberately trying to tap into different markets. So I also understand that it's not like organically grown, but I just think it shows like with American power how actually it's sort of declining and new spaces and new cultures are emerging, and that's just something interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to become like a pop culture
really
social commentator.
I think often we devalue pop culture, and in order to be seen as legitimate, we're like not meant to treat it seriously. But actually, like I think with social media, like it's part of our everyday lives. So that's why I enjoy it. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I'll talk more about it.
I love it. You should. You're like smiling ear to ear.
yeah.
Joy.
I really enjoy it.
It's so good.
I can talk endlessly about Britney Spears and patriarchy, but maybe that'll be another conversation.
We should definitely have a conversation about that another time. I have many thoughts about Britney Spears. Okay, but let's take it back to, so kind of talked about briefly pop culture, state of the world right now. Let's take it back to when you were growing up in Australia, your mixed race. How did that experience shape who you are today and your advocacy now for a better Australia?
I think growing up mixed race was a weird experience because I didn't look visibly different in the sense of identifiably different, but my background was absolutely different to the Australian narrative. And my mother, because I'm half white, half Asian, specifically half Malay, so she was visibly different. So it was a weird, I think like people call it like third world. So, you know, one world, second world, and then you're in this like in between.
Like
you're
a
in
third
your
culture kid?
Yeah, third culture, third world. And yeah, I think third culture actually. And so I think a lot of the time growing up in like post 9/11 Australia, a little bit later than that, I would say, like when I started, I'd say like early 2000s, I would say the closest to like Asian, like singing Asian and pop culture was like Kathleen from High Five.
Oh my gosh.
She's like the one woman of
She
color.
was my favorite.
Yeah, she was my favorite. And mum asked why. I was like, because she looks like you. I remember like that's what I told my mum.
Cute.
And I think I became more like conscious of difference when my family moved to country Victoria. And that was a very, like, it wasn't, at least when I was there, it wasn't a diverse place. There was like one Sri Lankan Australian girl in my grade, and like that was pretty much it in terms of diversity. And I think around that time, that was when I started to just like look around me, make sense of the world around me. And I felt that difference in different ways. So like even in religious studies class, like my school would teach Christianity or you could opt out. And my family, or at least my mom, is Muslim. So that was already like a note of difference. Even like skin color, I remember like kids commenting on her skin color, or when my relatives wore traditional wear as part of like the school like presentation, like family would present to students. I remember like kids laughing about it. And I think for like a long time that was just this like source of shame and confusion, and just like not like it was almost like we didn't exist in the Australian imagination. Like when we thought about Australia, even when I thought about Australia, it was like my family and my story and their story had no place there. We just were this like, we just existed in this like largely white culture. And to cut a long story short, like basically growing up, it sort of turned for me in high school when there was basically a lot of conversation about a Muslim ban because of ISIS in Syria. Mm-hmm. Somehow this had trickled down to like, we're going to ban all Muslims from entering the country, which is already so insane. And I ended up actually then sort of speaking about what it's like to grow up as the daughter of a Muslim woman. And that was like the first time that I actually spoke about it in a way that wasn't just internalizing the shame. It was actually saying like, putting a mirror and saying, this is everything that she has endured. And I've seen it growing up, even though I may not have directly experienced it as somebody mixed. I've watched it and witnessed it. And, this is how Australia has treated my mother. Like, how can we be better? And that was, I think, the first time I really, I gained a voice around race in Australia.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm so sorry that your mum had that experience. That's awful.
Yeah. I think a lot of migrants had to endure it very silently because economically they didn't have the privilege to while they couldn't fight back, they couldn't, actually I realized that so many migrants don't have the privilege to shape a narrative. And that's what I was interested in. Who gets to shape a narrative? Who is the one in politics talking about the problem? Is it directly from lived experience, or is this just fitting like a political agenda? And people like my mum have never had the opportunity or luxury to participate in political debate. They've never had the space because of work and money and connections and networks. And I just figured, as her daughter with more privilege to have that privilege to talk about it and speak up, how can I help in rebuilding an authentic narrative rather than something that can be co-opted by a politician in Australia to spin it for their own purposes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Your mum must be so proud of just everything that you've done and achieved, and taking a lot of that experience and narrative and turning it on its head and really trying to drive change for the better across the country.
I think it scared the hell out of her when
really?
I first started doing it, honestly. I remember she when I was on Q&A and she watched me, and I was pretty challenging to politicians.
Yeah.
And it went against everything that in Singaporean culture, you just don't do that. You just sort of do what you're told. So I think it was kind of scary to see her daughter be challenging, and it's more out of concern, what will happen to you? Are you sure you want to do this? But I think as she's seen me like build a career and build a platform, like she understands now. I think a lot of like kids of migrants have to experience that of like, you actually see so much of what they're going through, but they can like, I don't know, almost like, not be ready for you to like push in the same way that like they weren't able to. And it's like, we have this opportunity and we've seen what you've experienced. So like, this is part of who we are too. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's like your parents ultimately want you to be safe.
I think they've had to endure like so much heartbreak.
Yeah.
And it's out of love.
Yeah.
That it's like, but it's, I don't know. I think this is part of like the intergenerational differences. Like, I think that it's like with this privilege comes a responsibility, and I'm not going to just further myself or get like a well-paying job or whatever and then be like, there, I paid you back. Like, I don't think it's like that. I think that like my mom is not alone. There's like so many, like hundreds of thousands of millions of other migrants in Australia who have experienced the same. And it's like, I don't want it to happen again.
Yeah.
So it's not just about furthering me. It's about like all of us.
I like that. It's like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. For sure.
So you mentioned before about kind of being this third world or third culture kid. And I know from some of my experience, so I'm full Indian. I grew up in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And had this experience of code switching across different contexts depending on who I was around. So I'm curious if you've ever felt like you've had to code switch to be accepted or to have your voice heard, and especially in political or some of your advocacy circles.
For sure. I think a lot of it, I think to some extent everybody code switches, but it is specific in particularly my activism. I mean, it wasn't even just code switching, it was like content switching, because I remember early on I would like, I started, you know, as I said, I spoke about my mom and Islamophobia and I don't know, all of that. And then I felt like slowly I started shifting to talk about gender and just gender, like sometimes I'd mention intersectionality, but it was done in a way where I felt like Australia as a whole could understand the conversation about gender, particularly white Australia. Like that was something they were prepared to talk about. And I just felt myself focusing more on that. And I think in the past few years, I've like really rethought it. And it's also part of how I've evolved. But almost like self-censoring, I think is probably a way to put it. Like how to like framing things in a way that would make people feel comfortable. Until I think it sort of came to a head when I would find myself in spaces where I was the only person of color. And it was like, is this actually worth it? Because am I actually making a difference? Or am I now just a token and like a way to say, look, like we have one, you know, person of color and that's it. And then I started to reevaluate what I was saying with like a different philosophy that like to like have the faith that what I say will bring in the right people versus trying to say the right thing. And that took me, particularly as I think also as like a daughter of a migrant, this like I at least particularly like Asian, you know, an Asian migrant, like you don't want to say the wrong thing. You want to like, you know, please, you don't want to like have the wrong answer. And it took me like a while to break out of that. So I think like that was something that, you know, I still like, I can find myself doing, but I hope that now what I can say is like authentic and honestly like I think throughout it, I want to hold on to my integrity. That's really important. And I think that's sort of like a grounding thing as, you know, I can experience like pressures of like wanting to code switch. It's like I need, as long as I'm holding on to my integrity as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, or I wonder to what extent some of it is, it's part of that journey, right? Of sometimes when you're first starting out, and it may not even be an intentional strategic move, but sometimes you have to get into the door or get a seat at the table first before you can then really start shaking things up. And so I suppose, and you know, you started at such a young age as well, that's almost like probably a natural part of the journey.
I think it was very confusing for me because I grew up in a family that didn't talk about politics. This was, I saw the experiences of my mom, but it wasn't like a political family. I think it took me, I think when I first started, I had a lot of trust in politicians, in people in power, in like leaders. Like I didn't really understand like deeper problems and how maybe what they were saying actually wasn't really what was actually happening. Like, so I think it took me, so I think that was what sort of helped, like shaped that desire to please, because I looked up to them. Like I respected the people, you know, particularly like political leaders or like, I don't know, human rights lawyers. Like they were, you know, like who I wanted to be. And then I think as I've sort of evolved and found my own voice and also have become a lot more critical of these institutions, that's when I feel more comfortable to push back. But I mean, what I would say is like, yeah, I mean, to some extent, foot in the door, it's helpful. But also like with social media, there are so many ways to do things.
Yeah.
And what, like, honestly, it's like, what even is the door? Like everything, even the door is up in question. And like the way that people receive information is completely different. And I think there's so much space to like build your own platform and build your own voice and build your own community and probably even have more of an impact than somebody like who's a backbencher in politics. Like there are so many other like ways to like paths. So if I had to go back, you know, I'd probably just tell myself to trust myself and yeah, like it's cool to like meet like leaders and learn and whatever, but also like trust my own values and instincts, which I think I did hold, but you know, I'd trust it with I'd have a bit more confidence, I think, in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really interesting kind of seeing your journey as well. I mean, I've always been in awe of you, you know, just kind of putting yourself out there, speaking up about the causes that matter the most. Again, like just as a young person and just being so selfless in doing that, and you're really seeing you were always brilliant at speaking, but really seeing you kind of find your voice even more and step into your own has just been just fantastic to be able to observe that journey. I guess shout out to social media, right? Because that's how we've been able to follow
better
along.
Or worse.
Right? Yeah, totally. And so I guess, you know, speaking of you have and you continue to speak about like multiple really important causes like gender equality, just human rights, food. You're on like the Board of Oz Harvest, yeah. And so I'm really curious to know, like, so I'm a big believer in kind of filling your cup because you can't pour from an empty cup. So how do you kind of keep showing up for these important causes? And do you make time for rest between it all? And if you do, like, how do you do that? If not, what's your secret?
Yeah, no, definitely I make time for rest. I think like it isn't rest in terms of actual doing things. It's things that are taking emotional labor.
Yeah.
And I think particularly as an activist, it is very personally punishing. Like I think looking at Greta Thunberg is the most clear and obvious example of that, where like I can't even imagine like the emotional toll of doing work that you care so deeply about. And it's like everything I do like is coming from my heart and soul. And I think that's also part of like being raised in a family that didn't talk about politics. Like everything I care about is like truly coming from my core. It isn't some like intellectual exercise. Like at first and foremost, it's because I think it's like it's for what is like right and just. And that means that I think like particularly putting yourself out there can be like very exhausting, particularly if like it's a very like toxic environment or like, I don't know, whatever it may be. Like, and I definitely felt that like during, and there's like a big conversation about sexual assault a few years ago with Brittany Higgins and Grace Tame. And that was like a lot. That was a lot. And it was something I cared about very much, but it was definitely starting to affect me. Like, and I noticed that when I get affected, it's like when I can't shake it, it's almost like depression in a way. Like it's just, it really like sort of takes over you. And so, and I was always conscious that like other young female activists around me, they definitely burnt out. Like I would see the burnout and it could last for years. Like it could be like really severe. And I always like committed to like managing my energy wherever possible. And I always try to keep stock of my energy. And there's a difference between, I think, resting there and being afraid to go back out. Like, and I've also experienced that having copped like a lot of abuse on social media throughout my life. And there's parts, so it's like, is it actually like energizing? Am I like gaining energy or am I just hiding? so yeah, I think that's like something I've like had to figure out and understand. I think another way I actually get energy is just like seeing things, being in it. So like there's like different examples. Like one was when I went to the West Bank. I mean, that was the most obvious, transformative, life-changing one. That one gives you energy in terms of just like being there and seeing it and feeling it in like all the senses. And I feel like that like helps me continue that fire. Another one was like when I worked with at Oxford, I was part of this campaign fighting for survivors on campus, and like we had an open mic night, and people would read poetry and like share their stories, and sometimes like speak about their assault for the first time in their life. Like it was a really huge thing, and like just being around that sort of energy, like that gives me so much energy. So it's like a mix of like resting and recuperating, but also like being around other people, not just in my four walls of my house, like being angry and frustrated and just like and fighting digitally, where it's like super, super isolating and like often mean and very like two-dimensional of like you say something, another person comments, like it's not a normal interaction. So I just think like surrounding myself with like good people, it's like it makes such a difference. Like I don't know, it's like I can sometimes like I feel so sad, and then it's like with the world, and then I like have a conversation with one of my friends and I like feel differently. Yeah. And that I think that means something. Like that's also a source of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, I didn't think about the amount of online hate you probably would receive, or just like the nasty comments. Has that been hard to
Yeah, I
deal
think
with?
it's like actually gotten harder. Like I think Palestine has been really hard because it's something that I like care so much about. Actually, I care like I think domestically it's like one thing because like I don't know, like there's enough people inside, you like see it, like I feel like gender and race, like there's enough people who like support that isn't crazy, but like I think it's like so much more intense, like advocating for Palestine, and like there's so much more like smear campaigns and attacks, and having seen what I saw, it's like I found that the hardest because I just care so much about it. But yeah, I think it's like it's still worth it, and it's still part of my fight. But yeah, I do have like ways to manage it. Like I think even like my partner sometimes will like read comments for me if I don't want to like be on that and constantly see it. And then also like sometimes it's just like, I know it's so boring, it's like not checking, but it's like sometimes it is not checking. And I think like people actually don't pay like attention to comments, but like it feels like it's the whole world. Like it's this is what I mean about the insular nature of things. So it's like, yeah, sometimes it's actually just like getting out and like touching grass.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, oh, okay, like it actually is like in my phone. Like it actually isn't the whole world. Yeah. And that helps, so.
Yeah, totally. Touch grass, see some Katseye.
Like literally, like.
Go buy some labubus.
Yeah. Like go buy matcha, like no. Yeah. But no, it's hard. I mean, it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's hard, but it's like honestly, yes, it's hard. Yeah. But what's the alternative? Saying nothing, and then watching the world pass me by. Like, and that's how I felt in the beginning with my mom and feeling the shame. Like, so it's like, so both have cons, but I feel like I couldn't sit with myself just like saying nothing, because it's like then the narrative writes itself. Right? It's the whole thing about writing your own narrative. Like, okay, the world will just keep moving, and you just won't have any say in it. And I guess you'll be comfortable, but like that can just sit. You also know that like the world is changing.
I'll pour you a glass of some Tread Softly non-alcoholic rosé. So Tread Softly has sponsored season 1 of Original Sin. You can have a big pour because there's no alcohol in there. There you go.
Thank you.
And Tread Softly is a certified sustainable wine brand, and they are naturally lighter in alcohol, and they have this incredible non-alc range that they've won a couple of awards for already. It's relatively new. And this year they launched their Next Generation Rising Star winemaker program, which is to support young women in winemaking and help them really come up through their career in the wine industry. So we love Tread Softly.
Are we actually drinking it?
Yeah, please do. It's delicious. It's probably cheers.
Cheers.
It's probably one of my favourite
all my friends in high school were like nerds. Like none of us like partied, none of us went out. Like we called ourselves like the United Nations, which now I hear that is like a common thing with like when you're just the only like brown people.
Yeah, and you get to, I think, have you seen Never Have I Ever?
No, but were they
I'm
also...
pretty sure the three main guys, I'm sure it's a Never Have I Ever, they call themselves the United Nations.
like,
one's Indian,
honestly.
one's half black, one's
Yeah.
Asian.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then we had like a token white person. No, she wasn't token, but she was like the one white friend. Anyway, yeah.
You need a mix. That's so cute though.
Yeah.
I bet you're all out there doing really great things and changing the
amazing.
world.
Amazing.
Yeah. So you don't party in high school, kids.
Yes, I guess
that's
so.
what happens. I think you were saying before that there's different ways to kind of have a voice. You don't have to go into politics. You don't have to,
I mean, we just talk about pop culture, right? Like,
yeah, exactly, and have a voice.
Yeah.
I love it. Do you think you'd ever go into politics though?
Oh, politics? I've considered it. I mean, I don't know. It's like
You're still very young, so
the question is, honestly, the bigger question is whether I can keep my integrity and whether my voice actually makes a difference. And maybe that sounds crazy because my whole thing is like, be interested in politics. We need more people in politics. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I'm not going to be, for example, in a party that like, is like, you have to toe the line on X, Y, Z and you can't have your own voice. Like that's not something that I'm willing to compromise on. So we'll see. Yeah. But I feel like independents in Australia have like, it's been like cool to see. I think some have like been far more impactful than others. And like, so that's been interesting. But again, I think there's like many ways to challenge a narrative. That's one way. So maybe, but
totally.
there's also maybe like many other things. So
yeah. Maybe you should get together with your friends from high school. You should be the United Nations party.
Yeah, would be cool. Yeah.
World peace.
Yeah. Like I think about Zoran, right? Zoran Mandani. And it's like,
yes.
As much as I can like dismiss and politics, like I do see like, first of all, like as a brown man of color in this current climate and actively challenging Trump and MAGA and even like standard Democrats, like warmonger Democrats, like that has given me hope. And it has opened the capacity for people to imagine actually what could be different. So it's like there actually still is power in running in these positions. So I don't want to discount it or undermine it. And I do think, and my hope is that we have more young women of color in politics who can be free to speak. Like I think that's a really powerful way to like challenge existing narratives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So then hypothetically speaking, if you were the Prime Minister of Australia tomorrow, what's the first uncomfortable truth you'd force the country to face and why?
Okay, we want to get real uncomfortable. I don't know if you want to edit this out, but we need to seriously think about our relationship with the US. Seriously. I'm like very, very troubled by this follower mentality that we have in Australia. We've followed the UK, we're following the US, and I'm looking at the future and it doesn't look good if we're going to blindly follow the US. I think we will already, like we've followed them in some pretty atrocious things. And in my opinion, it will only get worse. So I really think we urgently need to think about who we want to be in this world, our identity, and it can't just be Western, we're going to quietly follow whatever the US says, because the US, like who knows who the next president will be. Like this is like, we can't follow this like schizophrenic behavior. Like we need to actually have an identity of our own. And I'm so sick of how we're so like risk averse, particularly internationally, of just like putting our head in the sand and then like this is not, we claim to be a middle power, like this is weakness, like this is not a middle power, this is doing nothing. And I don't think that's leadership, and I also don't think that's always how we've been. Like I actually think we have like taken more of a stand in the past. So that's something that I would urgently call for, is to rethink and reimagine our relationship, not just with the US, but with the whole world. And also thinking about Asia, we have so many Asian Australians. So this isn't just like we need to get closer to Asia because the US is leaving us. Like actually, like many of us are Asian. We have a very long Asian history since the gold rush of like Chinese settlers coming to this country. Like we are like, in a sense, Eurasian. And it's like, actually like, let's feel that. Like, let's actually rethink again, like who are we? It's not just barbecues and beach. Like it's also like many multicultural and often like Asian culture. So when we think about Asia, like we're not outsider, insider. Like this is also who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that is something that Australians need to unlearn to build a fairer Australia? And because you talk about building a fairer Australia, which I really admire, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think even before that, we need to rethink the frame, which is to go all the way back, the point of colonization, and even further back, like the oldest living continuous culture, 65,000 years. Actually, let's sit with that for a moment, because I think it's like we often act like Australia is like really young, brand new, but actually this is very, very ancient land. So knowing our history of brutal, violent, bloody history of genocide and dispossession and ethnic cleansing, and we claim to have learned from that. So what have we learned? And not just an acknowledgement of country, or not even just domestic policies. What is our obligation to all oppressed, all Indigenous peoples around the world? What is the legacies of colonization that we can learn from? And how can that shape who we are as a country? So like when I said we're Eurasian, I guess like maybe that's not even accurate, because I'm just talking about settlers. Like I'm talking just demographically, who's the majority, right? But just thinking about, like, I feel like there hasn't fully been an internalization of some sort of connection between what has happened in our past to the rest of the world. And we are not like a unique story. Like there is a like long and bloody history of Indigenous genocides, I think of Canada, for example. And so it's not just us, which means that these violent systems and these violent ways of being still continue, and we still see the consequences of colonization. So I think I want to like connect what has happened and what continues to happen in this country to the rest of the world, and to let that shape what we aspire to be, what we commit to being, what we learn from, and what we actually reflect then in our values. I think that's actually learning rather than just, lip service.
How do you think we can actually learn and move ahead, like with that lens?
I think South Africa is a really helpful example of, like, I feel like we haven't, like, colonization continues, even in Australia. The Voice was like one example of like the way that people are not yet ready to not just like talk about a voice, but to talk about what happened. And I think it starts with actually talking about it and feeling it. And something I learned when I was in South Africa was that overcoming apartheid was the role for everybody, white, black, Indian, because there was a large Indian South African population, Malay, mixed. It was the role of everybody. Yep. And the same thing is with oppression today. Like it's not just the people who are oppressed, like it's everybody's job to understand and connect history to today and to fight for the liberation of everybody. Like we're all on this planet, we're all on this earth. So I would say to learn about a history and to feel it, to hold that discomfort, and then to think about the narrative Australia tells itself and what's missing, and then two, to imagine who we could be. That includes something that I took away when I was in South Africa is when Mandela got elected, and suddenly the ANC, which was treated as like a radical, group, whatever, became those in power. Black South Africans who were, at the bottom of the hierarchy now had the chance to reshape a narrative. So I think often we have a very Indigenous people have always been on the outskirts rather than central. What would it actually look like to have a First Nations narrative in this country? What is the story they would tell? What is the sort of solidarity they would have with other cultures around the world? And that's what we need to then collectively imagine. I think maybe what I would encourage people is to rather than just wanting the crumbs, if you will, just reimagine from a First Nations perspective, what is this country, and looking out what is our obligation to the rest of the world. Start there. And I think it'll be really, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like taking a first principles approach in policy making.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I like that. Every time you speak about some of these big issues, I do walk away with this sense of hope, and I'm like, we're in good hands for the future. No pressure. Yes. But I'm curious, you know, if there's a part of you that wonders, like, if or how we'll ever actually get there. So, you know, to some of your reflections just now about, you know, just reading, learning, reimagining things. Like, do you think we can actually get there one day?
Well, the question is, the interesting words in that question is there and one day, right? So it's like, where is there?
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Will there be a one day thinking about climate change?
Yeah.
So I think climate change has really, really changes the game because, we can talk about progress, but what is the world going to look like in like 30 years?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like we can make progress for humanity, but what about the world? And I'm not going to lie, I can't say all like song and dance and roses. Like, this is the existential fight for our lives in this planet. But I think Greta Thunberg put it well, where it was, we have no choice but to fight. Like, it's either that or do nothing.
Yep.
Like, there's actually no alternative. And it's like, okay, if you feel hopeless, what are you going to do? You're just going to sit there and feel depressed. Great. Like, great legacy, great like way to use your one life. Like, so that's, I think, the commitment that we can all at least hold. Like, that on a personal level, I'm going to keep fighting. Like, I'm going to keep fighting rather than just letting the world pass me by. And that's all we can do. And then when enough people do that, like, the action does happen. It's inevitable. Like, this is just majority versus minority. Like, this is maths. Like, if enough people are fighting against this, like, things can change. So that's, I think, what I'm going to commit to, just to keep fighting.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. Very motivating.
Thank you. A bit more realistic, right? I don't want to like have false promises.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. The world is really cooked right now. Yeah. It is, even the wins that have happened, like, it's like being repealed every single day. But again, what are we going to do?
Yeah, like if we sit back, it's just
going to get worse. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I know who I am and I'm going to stick by that. And then I can, you know, say hand on heart that, like, I did hold on to my integrity.
I like that you keep bringing it back to that's your like core tenet is your integrity, and that's such a powerful thing to drive your actions and change as well.
I think we're seeing a real lack of it right now.
Oh,
I think that's also why I think I keep drawing back to it. Like, so-called leaders, like, it's actually really rare to find a leader who actually has integrity. Like, and it's like one thing, it's like, what are you going to be a leader and then do nothing? It's like, that's not a leader.
No,
like,
your job
you know what
is
I mean?
to
Like,
lead.
it's like, I don't know, I think of like when I was in Japan and I saw like women who show up every day making meals for young women who have fled domestic violence. Like, they're leaders, they have integrity, right? So it's like, I'm not very impressed anymore with like a title. I'd actually want to see what you do every single day.
Yeah, showing up, taking action, and kind of that whole 1% better everyday approach.
True, that's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one. My partner keeps telling me, think of every day how to make it 1% better.
Yeah, just like one small step, and eventually it leads to change.
True. I like that.
Yeah.
See, that's inspired me. I'm like, I'll take that.
Gonna go and tell everyone I inspired Yasmin Poole. On that point of, you know, continuously taking action and just pushing through, getting things done. And you touched on this earlier, like you've been in rooms where no one else looked like you. So in those situations, how do you actually command attention in those spaces to get things done?
Well, I think it depends on the room.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is like, okay, I'm the only person here, this sucks. And, you know, this is, and I'll talk more about, you know, how I do that, but still have the hope that things can change. Then sometimes there are rooms where actually I don't think I should be in this room because this is clearly not like a welcoming space, and I'm actually like, I'm not going to put myself in the situation of being tokenized. So I think like there's people have to realize it's like two different things, and like one where like I could be the only person in the room but it is worthwhile would be like in government, for example. And I remember like at the Jobs and Skills Summit, I was like one of two young people there. I think the other young person, he was like 30, right? So he was like on the cusp, but like I was pretty much the only young person speaking about jobs and employment. And that was, you know, like all the major politicians and premiers were there. So So that was a really important moment to talk about young people. And the way that I sort of, in spaces like that, is I don't shy away from who I am. And actually, it's like when you're the only person there, like it's really useful to talk about the differentiating part and experience that you bring. So, you know, if I'm the only, like often I find like on TV programs or whatever, I'd be the only young person on a panel. I'm going to talk about how young people are experiencing this particular political issue, because young people like have views on like whatever it may be, but it's like not usually amplified on mainstream television. So it's like, how can I amplify that? Or let's say it's all white, you know, how can I talk about the experiences of women of color or young women of color experiencing this particular issue? So that's what I try to bring, is like not to shy away from those parts, but actually to use it as a differentiator and then change the conversation. Because if I don't raise it, it's not going to get raised. That's always what I try. It's like, if I don't say it now, even if it's scary, it won't even be considered. And lots of people, it would have never crossed their mind if you didn't explicitly bring it up. That's different to, we want you in here and we're going to take a photo, and we already have like all of our, I don't know, I've had experiences where it's like basically everything is already done. Let's say it's like a feminist project. Everything's already done. They just want me to like be part of it at the very end. And then you like look at who's in it. It's like, okay, so I've had no input, like you've had no consideration of like women of color or whatever. So there are moments where I think you have to draw a line. I think that's different for everyone, and you know, but I think, yeah, anyway, tying back, step into what makes you different, talk about that, highlight that, and don't shy away from it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. That's actually, you preempted what my next question was going to be for you.
Yeah.
Which I'll still ask it, just in case you've got anything more to add, which is, if you could whisper one sentence to every young woman or young person who's been told that they're too ambitious, what would it be?
I'd be like, you're in Australia. Like, they always say that to everybody. This country like
Tall
hates
poppy syndrome.
This country hates ambition so bad. Like, it's so cringe. Like, I don't know. Like, man, I feel like it like rewards mediocrity all the time. And like, again, you see that in our leaders, in our politics. Like, it's so, yeah. Like, I'd say like, what do you want to do? Like, actually though, like, what do you want to do? And, you know, I think that there's often like a lot of resistance for doing something differently, or particularly in Australia, of being seen to like, oh, you think you're all that, blah, blah, blah. And I think it holds us back so much as a country. And I didn't fully appreciate it until I went overseas, and particularly in the UK, where I studied with such amazing people. And actually you could talk about anything. Like there were people there that were passionate about like all different stuff. It wasn't cringe to talk about it. Wasn't cringe to imagine. What was seen as cringe was, you know, not sticking to your values and sort of seen as like playing a game. So I actually think that's like, be ambitious also in what you want to change, like what you believe in, like how you trust yourself, how you move through the world. And like that ambition, even like not just individually, but on a global level, is like what is needed to think beyond these systems and structures. So that's what I would encourage as well. It's like ambitious personally and also for the world, because unless you feel that, like, I don't know, you'll get pummeled constantly of how the world tells you to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And almost having this like greater purpose just beyond yourself, because at the end of the day, it's the purpose that really drives many of us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say all of us, but many of us.
Yeah. I feel like, especially as a young activist, I feel like I copped it a lot, particularly on a university level where, I would like hear like, again, the classic, like, who does she think she is, like whatever, negative stuff. So I would also say to keep that in mind in terms of even friends and people you keep around you. Like, are they people that are encouraging you, wanting you to grow? And I can say now that I have those people, like it's not even like encouraging me to grow. It's just being there and supporting me, no matter what, like just being at such a stable foundation. And I just feel like hold those people close. And those are the people that, like, in moments of like fear or something, like they're the people that are going to keep you strong.
Yeah. Yeah. Who you surround yourself with matters so much. It's the whole, like, you're the sum of the company you keep. And
Yeah,
you definitely want to be surrounded by people who support you and aren't there to tear you down or, you know, keep things real with you, of course,
Totally.
but not in a
Totally.
way that tears you down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you have that. That's
do.
important.
Yeah, definitely through my partner. He's an amazing person to bounce ideas off, always.
Good.
And will tell it to me straight. You know, like I think often I feel like sometimes I can be more people pleaser, and he really helps me break through that. So also just somebody in your corner who can help you with that. It's like really useful and be like, actually, is this who you are? I'm like, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I could, rather than saying it in this restrained way, actually, no, this is what's happening. I'm not going to be afraid of telling it how it is. So.
Yes, I love that. I'm also a recovering people pleaser, so
Yeah.
can relate.
Yeah.
So, Original Sin, it's all about, really accomplished women such as yourself sharing their stories and their knowledge and ultimately their tips that the Old Boys Club doesn't want us to share. So I would like to know, what is your original sin, which is the thing that you were told not to do or to say, but you did it anyway, and it changed everything?
Oh my gosh. I think my moment of original sin was the first time I was on Q&A.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the Safe Schools program, and this old conservative politician, anyway, he was like saying that homophobia doesn't exist in schools. And for context, I wasn't really planning to be that outspoken because at the time I had hopes of becoming a diplomat one day. So just like now I'm like, yeah.
You're like toe the party line.
Yeah, but so that's originally what I wanted to
Yeah.
be. And then inside of me, I was just like, I know that homophobia happens in schools, and also like I really feel the need to push back against this. And then all of a sudden I was like, respectfully, it's been several decades since you were in high school. And then I like go on this like thing about how like we need a better curriculum that like reflects the way of the world, and how homophobia like is absolutely happening in schools. And maybe that was my original sin, because that actually went against basically everything that I was taught my whole life. And it was like something that I didn't sit down and say, I want to do this, I want to say this. It just happened. And sometimes it's also following your gut and your instinct. And guess what? Like that moment ended up shaping like my trajectory and how I approach things, and not being afraid and not deferring just because somebody is has a title, and standing by what's right. So
Amazing.
that was my sin.
It's one hell of a sin.
It went against all my programming as like an Asian Australian.
Yeah.
As a daughter of a migrant, like this was not part of the programming. But
Yeah, but there you go. So listen to your gut and use your voice. That is a great sin, one to be proud of. Yasmin, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. It's been just such a pleasure to hear more about your journey and just some of your incredible reflections and just all the golden nuggets of advice throughout. You've certainly inspired me over the past few years. I'm a little bit older than you, and you've really inspired me throughout my career. And no doubt you'll be inspiring a whole bunch of women out there who tune in.
Thank you so much. Let's clink. Ooh,
Yeah.
I just put my
cheers.
wine.
Oh, sorry.
Clink.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cute.